He said stuff without a scare.
This defense sucks. You are a professional team. Act like one, for God's sakes.
One of the greats. Buffone was a bear. He was a Chicago Bear. Now at the barroom for year 9, knowing winning is the bottom line. John Buffone continues the legacy. He's got Doug's pedigree.
If you look at this team and this quarterback and this coach, if it's not going to be now, when?
And John does it with 2 pros, Alyssa Barbieri and Shimon. Buffone, 55 years old Bear, covering all the team's affairs. Buffone, 55 years old Bear, covering all the team's affairs.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Buffone 55. Guys, I have a feeling things are about to turn around. Do we have a clip of how I'm feeling right now? Because I think that's the only way we can do it. Do we have that, Aldo?
All right, you guys, let's listen up. We won a game yesterday. And if we win one today, that's 2 in a row. We win one tomorrow, that's called a winning streak. It has happened before. So let's see some hustle. Let's jack it up a little. I got a feeling things are about to turn around for us.
Snap a bit high. Kick is good. And the Bears win it. Jake Moody, a hero tonight.
Ooh, is it good to see a kicking highlight that actually turns out in the Bears' favor? And you know what? Dare I say, I got a feeling things are going to turn around for us too. The Bears have won 3 straight games. 2 of those games are road victories. And despite the imperfections like too many penalties, an offense still not firing on all cylinders, and mishaps in the defensive backfield, the Bears are now carrying a certain aura, as the kids say about them, that not even Troy Aikman can put out. But that's a story, different story altogether. Let's talk about the Bears' dramatic 25-24 victory over the Washington Commanders in the nation's capital with my friends and co-host Danny Shimon, lead game analyst here at the Bar Room and the owner-operator of Shimon Draft Scout on YouTube. And back with us after a week off is the super busy Alyssa Barbieri from the USA Today's Football Wires, including Bears Wire. Guys, we don't get to celebrate winning streaks very often, so let's just soak this in real quick. And Alyssa and Danny, you guys know I hate primetime games. I cannot stand primetime games. And so when I'm watching this game last night, and I'm on the East Coast, so it's like 11:30 at that time, and I'm watching the game and I'm seeing the things, so I'm like, oh no, it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. I'm going to invest this time on a close game, and then something's going to happen where the Bears lose. I'm going to get no sleep. I'm going to wake up ticked off because I'm tired, and the Bears lost. I'm thinking, why did I even stay up to watch that? And you know what? The ball bounced the Bears' way finally. They caught a break and they capitalized. There's plenty of things to clean up, but I'd rather clean them up after an ugly victory than a pretty loss. Danny, what was your initial thoughts after that game?
John, I was right there with you, man. I had my, and I was a bad father. I had my son on a school night stay up with me and watch that game last night. And so funny because when I heard Jake Moody was kicking and Carroll was out, I'm like, I hope this game does not come down to a last-minute field goal. Well, guess what? It came down to a last-second field goal. And then what got me even more nervous, and I was right there with you, was when I saw Ben Johnson turtle up and start playing for the field goal. And I'm like, why are you playing for the field goal? Be aggressive. Throw the ball down the field. And then even when they line up for, I'm like, he's gonna miss it. He's gonna miss it. Somehow, some way, he's gonna miss it. And when I went through, I was like, whoo! It was an ugly win, but it was a win. And listening to that open, I think your Uncle Doug would have loved this game because it was nasty. It was bad weather. And chips were down. Looked like the Bears were going to be out of it. They lost momentum, and they're next thing you know, they're up by 13, down by 8. And I had flashbacks to Minnesota opening game where they blew a 13-point lead, and they just came back. And they came back and they showed the resiliency. And again, ugly win, plenty of mistakes, plenty of missed opportunities out there. But this is, we always say, the best tape is to teach a team or a unit of how to get better is a winning tape. And I think that these last 2 weeks that they've gone out there and they've won these back-to-back last second, you can see the belief in the locker room. You can see post game and those shots in the locker room how the guys are rallying around Ben Johnson and the staff and I think it's something's growing there. They're not perfect. They're not they're getting better. A long way to go, but we're seeing growth here in this team.
Absolutely. And Alyssa, this is kind of redemption for what happened last year. Now, look, they had a lot of momentum. Well, they had some momentum going into last year. They had a winning record going in, and then the Hail Mary game derailed everything. This time they leave Washington with a win. And like Danny and I were saying, we were preparing for the worst. I'm already thinking about the headlines, the Moody Blues, after he blows a kick to lose the game or something of that nature. I'm visualizing that in my head. And then, I see the ball go through the uprights. I don't see any flags on the field. Everyone's celebrating. I'm like, is it okay to be happy? Is it over? I'm still waiting for something else to happen. And I'm like, okay, they won. Okay, that's great. What was your reaction watching that game?
Yeah, I think all three of our minds had a group chat because I was feeling the exact same things. Like Danny, when you were like, I hope this doesn't come down to a kick. That's how I started this game. I'm like, please do not let this come down to Jake Moody having to win in the game. My Michigan man, but he's been inconsistent in the NFL. So I was very nervous about that. And I think it was end of the second quarter, definitely the third quarter where I'm like, no, they lost that after one play. Oh no, game over. Game over, because how many times have we seen the Bears go into these games and lose like this, where they're shooting themselves in the foot? We've never seen them come back and be able to win a close game. A couple weeks ago against the Raiders, these are games they would not have won last year with Matt Eberflus. So I really think that now we're seeing the first one against the Raiders is like, okay, maybe that's lucky. The second one, maybe this is now a trend, a pattern. Ben Johnson might be it. I mean, it's still early on. We're 5 games in, but it's different than what we've seen in the past. And it was nice to come into, it was nice at the end of the game to be like, wow, okay, they pulled out again against a better team, because you could say what you want about them beating the Raiders. But yeah, I was also hiding in the kitchen when Moody went up to get the game-winning field goal. I'm like, it's 38 yards. It should be a gimme, but nothing's a gimme with the Bears. So it was nice to just be able to be happy, like you said, John, with the outcome of this. And who knows, maybe good things are on the way.
Yeah, and Vizzo Joe there in the chat room, just PTSD from previous years. Yeah, we have seen this movie. They just happened to do the director's cut with a different ending this time, because you're watching this game and you see the touchdown that was nullified for the illegal formation call, the incomplete pass on 4th and 1 at the Washington 31. They had a field goal block. Going into the fourth quarter, they were 1 of 7 on 3rd down. The
drop coverage with Luke McCaffrey's touchdown.
Exactly. The drop pass by Oz, he could have been running forever on that slant route when they were deep in their own territory. It's like, and I'm thinking to myself, how many opportunities do they need to get? They're trying to give them the game, just capitalize on it once. And you know what? The misfortunes went in the Commanders' way. Yeah, Caleb fumbled a snap and it was high and it was raining and whatever. But then Jaden Daniels did the same thing, and he ended up losing the football. So if the roles were in reverse and Caleb Williams would have fumbled that ball and the Commanders would have jumped on it, they'd still be talking about it. And if Caleb Williams would have thrown the interception that Jaden Daniels threw in the end zone, they'd probably still be talking about it. But you know what? They came out victorious. It was a heck of a game. I still I don't want to overblow it, but it was a huge win because this is the kind of game that the Bears don't usually win. They come out, 2 weeks in a row with gritty, ugly wins. I think I said last week, Danny, that I was predicting this to be another kind of slow, sloppy game, and it was going to come down towards something happening at the end, and it did. So I want to. We talked about Jake Moody and what a good story that is. Not that I want to stir up any kind of kicking controversy because that's not, that's great radio. But Danny, with Jake Moody there, if Cairo Santos is healthy, he's back. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Cairo Santos deserves to, his spot back. And like I said, Moody, a third round pick for the 49ers a couple of years ago, highly touted out of Michigan. I was there down at the East West Shrine game when he was there. Yeah, he was by far the best kicker there in that game. And unfortunately for him, and he's got a strong leg, but he's been inconsistent, and he missed, I think, like 7 or 8 field goals last year with the 49ers. Missed a couple early on in the season. They cut him. The Bears picked him up. Now, reading about him, when he changed his approach to the kick now, instead of a 3-step to the kick, he's shortened it to 2 steps, and that he thinks that's kind of fixed his accuracy issues. We'll see, but yeah, if Cairo is healthy, Cairo's back, and then he reverts back to the practice squad. But my thing is, if Cairo comes back, you have, Jake Moody, there's a ton of teams looking for kickers. Maybe you can salvage a 7th round pick or a 6th round pick from a team that's looking for a kicker, and you can trade them off and get something for him. Hey, you pick them up for nothing, and you can get a 6 or 7 round pick for them. I would see if that would, they could do something like that, but they might want to keep him around a little bit longer, depending on Cairo's health. Because I think today, Ben Johnson, that it's kind of like day to day. We'll see how Cairo feels. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a nice, backup plan to have there, definitely to have him on your practice squad, waiting to be, jump in the fray there and kicking, especially those conditions. And that's a big thing. You were talking about the end of the game. I'm like, they were just coming off a block field goal previously. I'm like, man, I go, they're going to block this or something's going to go wrong, but nope, they run right through the uprights.
Yeah. And not to spend too much time talking about kicking, Alyssa, but does this maybe buy Cairo Santos? He's like, hey, you don't got to rush back. We might be okay. We got a guy with a strong leg. Now, not to say that you can be a king one week and the jester the next week if you blow 2 kicks, but is it looking like, hey, you don't got to rush Cairo back because Moody came through in the clutch?
Yeah, they can elevate him to the practice squad again next week if they need to, and this is a short week, so you want to make sure that Cairo rests up. And again, if you have to rely on a kicker, I mean, hopefully the Saints game isn't something where it needs to come down to a kick. But again, the Raiders game did, so you never know. But you want to make sure whoever's kicking for you is healthy. So give Cairo a little time to rest. And, Moody has shown that, he can be a reliable kicker. And it was kind of funny, like thinking back, not that I think that Jake Moody's going to be like the Bears' long-term answer at kicker, but it was kind of funny, like when Robbie Gould was struggling with the Bears and he went to a new, ironically enough, San Francisco, and he kind of found new life there. So I think that, I don't know, maybe this is a good start for Moody wherever he goes next. Like maybe, like Danny said, maybe the Bears, maybe Ryan Poles can get something for him, because that would be a pleasant surprise. But yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if we see Moody again this week because of the short week and making sure that Cairo is fully healthy.
What was funny, guys, was half the team was admitting that they haven't even met him until that day.
Right.
And this guy's been on a team since week 2. So I was like, don't you guys talk to anybody on that? But apparently, like the specialists, they do their thing on their own field, and there's not much interaction. So a lot of, like, DeAndre Swift was like, I just met him today, during the game. So I was like, oh.
Did you hear him after the game too? He's like, I love you guys. And I'm like, I think we just met today.
Hey, love at first sight, especially whenever you come through on a kick like that. A lot of people are going to love you, and you're going to love a lot of people. But Danny, you brought up DeAndre Swift, so I think that's a great transition away from this kicking segment that we spent way too much time on. But that's regardless. DeAndre Swift.
Kickers have feelings too, all right?
You're right. We gave him his accolades there. But DeAndre Swift probably had his best game of the season. He rushed for over 100 yards. He caught 2 passes for over, I think it was 67 yards, including a 55-yard touchdown reception that was kind of the lifeblood that pumped the life back into the Bears towards the end of the game. Danny, what did you see? I think we have some video clips here. Well, what did you see out of DeAndre Swift?
Yeah, the running game was something that Ben Johnson said that during the bye week they were going to stress, and they were going to find ways to kind of reinvigorate it and bring it to life, because it was dormant, the first 4 weeks of the season. So that's something that Ben Johnson he really loves. He really wants to predicate everything around his offense on that rushing attack. And what they did this week is they ran away from the big defensive tackles inside for Washington, Deron Payne and Kinlaw, and they got Swift where he's excels better on the outside and in the open field. And we have a couple of clips here where that crack toss was a play that they used a lot, and also getting their tackles and getting their guards out to that second level defender quickly, getting him quickly out in that space in the open field and allowing him to use his burst and speed to get into that second and third level of the defense was really paying off for them. DeAndre Swift, we've said it before, he's not an in between tackles downhill runner. He's a guy, you utilize him. They used a lot of outside zone in this game. I mentioned earlier, we'll see that toss crack play multiple times, here throughout the game as well, and even towards the end of the game where they were just continuing to chunk yards out of it with DeAndre Swift running there. So I think that's what they really kind of hung their head on, if you will, and then that set everything up for them throughout the game. And then early on in the first half, the Bears offensive line was taking it to the Commanders defensive line. They were the more physical unit. They're out there looking to create movement, displace defenders. See there a nice kickoff block by Theo Benedict, where I think made his presence felt definitely in that run game early on. So it was a good start for the offensive line. It wasn't perfect. There were still some missed blocks. There were some opportunities there, but it's definitely a step up in terms of production. And what also happened, things that I've been stressing for so long, guys, is once you get a run game going, that play action was so much better for Caleb and the offense. They're so much more effective. You saw that they put those linebackers or second level defenders in conflict so many times with that play action. They kind of froze them for a split second, allowing some of those plays behind them to roam, and a couple of throws to DJ to come across there. And it was really what Ben Johnson had envisioned when he came here and took over this offense. And I think just continue to build off of this, right? Now, will they use the same kind of game plan against the Saints defense? We'll see how that goes. They've kept saying that they will kind of tailor and alter their attack depending on their opponent. So, this game, they definitely made an emphasis to get DeAndre Swift out on the outside, and get the blockers to the second level defender and give him some opportunity to make plays in space. And it worked. And hopefully it continues to kind of build from there.
And I just want to say thanks to Lutz, the reporter, for the paid comment there. Saints game will be close, field goal close. I mean, it's very possible with this team. You never know. It doesn't really matter who the competition is. Going to be close. And but Alyssa, before I have you weigh in, I also saw Flex Diggs comment about how about I referee a boxing match between Moody and Cairo. The loser gets traded. Well, they are kickers, so I don't know how much they use their hands. But I think that would be just a sad boxing match. As someone who spends a lot of time around a boxing gym, that might be sad, but it also might be entertaining. So
or we could do it Bachelor style and give one of them the final rose, kind of
why
like
do you always
and Elliot Fry. Oh my God, I still remember his name. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
That came out of nowhere.
Bring in Connor Barth. How about that?
hey, you guys remember that kicking competition under Nagy? You know who's the hottest kicker in the NFL right now? Eddie Pinheiro.
Eddie Pinheiro. Yeah. And did they have like Chris Blewett and they came in to do a thing there? They had a bunch of kickers.
That was at one point. It came down to Pinheiro and Fry in training camp.
Oh man!
And I remember that was the hot. Remember that's when we were only a
kicker away in 2019. We were talking about them trading for the Patriots kicker. I can't remember his name to save my life right now. But they're like, we after 2018 with the whole double doink thing. And I know we got off track here, but it's still Bears related. Is coming out of 2018. Our conversation was if they just get a reliable kicker, then we'll be okay. And then the wheels.
Was it Gostkowski talking about? He's talking about Gostkowski.
Gostkowski, yeah, that's who it was. Yeah,
because then the Patriots franchise tag him, and the talk was go get him. Right.
More kicker talk on the way. Stick around. We just lost everyone in the chat room.
We've talked more about special teams than ever before on this show. Yeah. So I hope
Aldo's
loving it.
Years ago, when this show started, Aldo always worked in like a 15-minute segment talking about special teams. We were talking about gunners and long snappers and who the holder was and the kicker and the punter. That was a mainstay on Buffone 55. I can't believe we're still in the air because people, I guess, paid attention to that. But and Paul Edinger, good pull there in the chat room. I always loved the way he kicked because he was looking in the opposite direction when he started that. But okay, let's start. We were talking about DeAndre Swift. Alyssa, Danny broke it down there, but was this is something, the run game looked as good as better than it has all year. Is this something they can build on with the way that they got the new formula there at the offensive line with Theo over at left tackle? Is this because if Ben Johnson wants to run the football, so if they're able to do that, what's the potential here?
Yeah, I think that's something that you can build upon. Obviously, Ben was talking about this is the best that the run game has looked all year, which the bar was pretty low at this point. And I think that having a game like this really gives, DeAndre Swift confidence, gives that offensive line confidence. And I think maybe going into the Saints game, I think because of their secondary, you might look to kind of attack downfield more. But obviously, Ben's still going to want to run the football, and that'll open things up as well. But, it was really nice because DeAndre Swift has caught a lot of flack. So I was really happy that he had that game where he led both in rushing and receiving. And I think that this was his first 100-yard game, I think, since it was the Commanders game last year. So if they're playing Washington, just give the ball to DeAndre Swift. So, but I definitely think bringing Theo Benedette, he hit him, and then having Darnell Wright come back. And, I think the addition of Benedette is going to be really big for this offensive line in the run game. So I think it's definitely something you can build upon moving forward. So we'll see. It takes one game. It's kind of like, when Ben was talking about, you got to get that first win, and then they start coming, and look, they've won 3 in a row. So hopefully that this is a performance that the run game can build on.
And going into the chat room, I think it was Bruce Ali that brought this up. Heard a stat, third time in Bears history where the Bears averaged more than 21 points in the first 5 games. Danny, you brought this up before we went on the air. When was the last time? Like 30 years ago?
1995 with Ron Turner was the offensive coordinator, and Dave Wanstead was the head coach. I believe Eric Kramer was toting the rock for the Bears back then.
So that stat where they haven't scored that much, they haven't scored 21 points in the first
5 consecutive games to open the season.
The last time they did that was 30 years ago when the NFL was a vastly different product. And now and it took 30 years for that again. Hey, it's better now than never, but it's that shows you.
And then 95, they did it 7 games in a row. So this team has got 2 more games to tie that record.
Hey, why not? Why not now? Why not? This
schedule's favorable. I think it's favorable.
The schedule is favorable. You're right. And we were talking about DeAndre Swift and the offensive line and Theo Benedette and all this other thing. Danny, talk about the O-line as a whole. And I want to play this clip because it was one of my favorite clips of the night from Darnell Wright. I think it was the pitch to DeAndre Swift to kind of kill the clock and then set up that last minute field goal. Stab the edge.
We call it a crack toss block, basically, where the inside receivers there, Zacchaeus and DJ Moore, they crack block on those defensive linemen. Darnell Wright uses athletic ability to get out in the open field there. You see there with a one-arm shiver there, and then gets out to the next level. And this is where you can see Darnell Wright's athleticism, his ability to get out to the next level, then pancakes that nickel a corner, and gives, again, DeAndre an ability to get out in the open field and get plays. They use this play multiple times in that game, on both on the left and right side, and with Theo being added in there. And I did watch him specifically when I rewatched the game. He's not a technician, right? But what he does, he gives you his full max effort, and he'll throw everything out there. He'll throw the kitchen sink at the defensive lineman, arms, feet, legs to stop him. And he's athletic for a big guy, and him too. His ability to get to that next level quickly, accelerating out of his stance, get to that second level linebacker or that defensive back, that made dividends as well. And I said last week that I think where he excels more so than Braxton Jones is again displacing defensive linemen, moving people at the line of scrimmage, kind of resetting that line of scrimmage, if you will, at the point of attack. And I think that's his strength there, and that plays into the hands of what Ben Johnson wanted to do, which is get the run game going. I think that's more so than his pass blocking. I think his run blocking is what got Theo the opportunity to start here. And I think yesterday, the great way to kind of say if an offensive lineman had a great day was, did you hear his name? Other than that one call, which really was, I still don't think that was a penalty, but whatever. Other than that one, we'll call it a bad call. You didn't hear his name. So that means he did very well in both pass protection and run blocking. And I think that's something that they can build on here moving forward. Now they're going to have some little bit more better, in my opinion, better pass rushers coming up here with the Saints and Cam Jordan and Granderson, a bigger guy. So we'll see how he holds up there. but definitely a good first start for Theo Benedict. And I think, again, his presence in the run game is kind of what helped motivate, that move, from Braxton Jones to him. And if this continues, that they continue, getting big yards and what Swift averaged 7.7 yards a carry. If that continues, play action, this offense is going to continue to get better and better and better, and they will match and supersede that 7-game streak that we're talking about here with the 95 team.
Alyssa, do you think they found the right chemistry on the line with this? Do you see this going forward as the one that's going to be the most effective? Because they still have, Ozzy Trapillo that they drafted high, and I don't know what their plans are for the rest of the year with him. Braxton Jones, obviously benched. What do you think might be? Is this can you think this is going to be for the foreseeable future what the offensive line looks like, barring injury, of course?
Yeah, I mean, I think I need more than a 1-game sample size to make a definitive statement. But I mean, I can see, and they gave Braxton an opportunity, and we kind of saw how that transpired. He's, solid as a pass blocker, but the run game just wasn't getting going. And I think that bringing Theo in and giving him an opportunity when he kicked over to left tackle against the Raiders, and they brought Ozzy in whenever Darnell was out. I mean, that was the best that the offensive line had looked up until Monday night's game. So I think that I want to see a little bit more. I need a bigger sample size, but I could see that this being the combination. Is it what we expected? No. Did we expect a former undrafted free agent to be starting at left tackle? No. I mean, do I think he's a long-term answer? No, but maybe this is going to be the combination that ends up working out. Ben Johnson, said, back in training camp that they're not going to marry themselves just to like one left tackle. If someone's not performing up to par, they'll make a change. So I don't foresee that changing as well. So if Theo doesn't cut it, then I could see them making a change. Do they want to stick with Ozzy over at right tackle? I don't know. We'll see. But I think right now, the way coming off that game against the Commanders, I think that they have a good base there. So we'll see. Hopefully, this is the offensive line that will be in place, barring injury, for the remainder of the year.
While Theo is not a prototypical left tackle, this is a kid you cannot overlook him, mainly because he came into the season as an afterthought. Really, he was a guy that was hurt last year, didn't play, and then next thing he's getting first team reps, and all he did was just continue to get better and better and better, and impress the coaching staff. And next thing he's get given an opportunity, and lo and behold, now he could be a starting left tackle in the NFL. So, but yeah, I think this combination could go. Now the only thing with Darnell Wright, he does have a torn UCL, which in layman's term, if you're a baseball player, you're getting Tommy John surgery. So he's going to end up wearing a brace and playing with it the rest of the year. Now, I think he doesn't need surgery, which is kind of weird. Typically with UCLs, you need surgery. But anyway, he's going to wear a brace. He's going to play with it. So it depends on how much pain tolerance it has. But in terms of, like I said, John, if it stays in terms of injuries, not included, this could be the combination. If they continue to produce this kind of a run game, I think this is a combination they could go forward with the rest of the season.
And they did an all right job protecting Caleb too, although he did take 3 sacks. And I want to talk about Caleb Williams' performance because if you look at it just from a box score standpoint, 17 of 29 for 252 yards with a touchdown, no picks, also had a rushing touchdown, as opposed to Jaden Daniels, who was 19 of 26 for only 211 yards, did have 3 touchdowns, but threw a pick in the end zone and also fumbled. That turned out to be incredibly costly to his team. So I only bring up Jaden Daniels' stats because those two are going to be connected throughout their entire career, where they're going to be comparing their trajectory of their careers, their box scores, their numbers, so on and so forth. But Danny, how do you evaluate Caleb's performance in this game? Still left some things on the table, but overall pretty solid in my opinion.
Yeah, there are still some plays where, again, there was that 4th and 1 to Rome. I mean, he was late on that one. It looked like he was trying to wait for DJ to get open, free down the field. And again, just take that. Rome was open right away, almost instantaneously. If he hit him before he got into the area in which Luvu was staying there, he hit him the easy conversion first down. So there was the one also where he scrambled and got the first down, but you see Rome. Yeah, they call it the mailbox. Put your hand up and say, "Hey, throw the ball to me." He was wide open, but decided not take the chance, just get the first down and continue to move on. I wasn't so mad about that one, but the fourth and one, opportunity, to make a play. But the one thing about Caleb, and we talked about it last week, is now, guys, if you notice, he's making more and more plays from the pocket, right? You see a couple times where he has to scramble and get out of the pocket and kind of make things happen with his feet, or try make those phenomenal throws, but he's becoming more and more a pocket passer. Now, is he there yet? Is he fully developed? No, but he's calmer in the pocket. His feet are much more calmer. He does a good job in terms of identifying now pressure and where it's coming from, has a good feel in terms of where it's coming from and where his outlet is. And one thing that we've touched upon multiple shows now, he's taken the check down. He's taken that, that throw to DeAndre Swift that became a 55-yard touchdown. That was a 5-yard check down, right? Mm-hmm. That wasn't a play. And he even said post game that Caleb said that he missed. He kind of, I guess, messed up the play in the huddle, kind of either called it the wrong way or whatever happened, and then was correcting it at the line of scrimmage. And then the ball was snapped, and then he just went down to real quick to that check down to DeAndre. Lo and behold, again, get the ball to your playmakers in space and let them create. And Swift took a 5-yard pass, 55 yards to the house. So Caleb is still, he's still getting there. He's not fully developed yet, but again, he's getting more and more comfortable each passing week in the pocket, making plays from the pocket. And you see less and less of him breaking away, running away, and creating havoc for himself and for the offense. So if they can just eliminate these penalties, I think you'll continue to see this, and then obviously continue with the rushing attack. I think you'll continue to see this offense continue to grow and get better and better.
Yeah, and Alyssa, we've said this. I've said this on numerous occasions that progress is not linear. So if he has one great game, that doesn't mean he's an established, polished product and he's going to be a Hall of Famer. If he has a bad game, that doesn't mean he's a bust either. But I think you're seeing consistent progress on Caleb Williams' part. Yeah, he's leaving some things on the table. That mailbox play that you talked about, Danny, he got a first down. If the worst thing that happens out of that play is they get a first down, right, I can live with that. Exactly. But Alyssa, in your opinion, are they with Ben Johnson and the evolution of the offensive line and the weapons around him and the young weapons around him, including Luther Burden and Colson Loveland, who aren't fully integrated into the offense yet, what is your confidence level right now with Caleb Williams being the guy?
Yeah, I think it's relatively high. I mean, again, I know Caleb's in his second season, but this is his first season with Ben Johnson. So we know, and it's only 5 games so far. So, we've seen him make progress and, like Danny was talking about, and how Ben has talked about a lot, how he's just operating in the pocket and executing this offense. He's getting better every week. We're seeing he wasn't at his best in this game. And I think this is the second time he struggled in prime time this season a little bit. It wasn't bad. He was good. He was okay. But the thing that I really love about him, and this is something that I think the more time that Ben gets to work with him, I mean, I just think it's going to get even better. But he always turns it on when the game is on the line in the fourth quarter. This season, looking at his stats, I think he has he's close to that 70% completion percentage that Ben wants him to be, completing 65.6% of his passes for 277 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a 113.7 passer rating. So, I mean, we know that that's when Caleb has the ball in the fourth quarter. How many times have we seen him last year execute some of those game-winning drives that the Bears just couldn't finish? So, I mean, I think that coupled with Ben getting to work with him more and more, well, again, like, the progress in between weeks 1 to 3, and then like 3 to 5 in our 5th game to the end of the season, I think that we're going to see substantial growth from now to the end of the year. And I think they got a good one in Ben. I think that that's going to be the best thing to happen to Caleb.
And I think the questions got to stop, guys. It's 5 games in, and I think these questions in terms of can this relationship work between Ben Johnson and Caleb, it's working. It's working. And I think for everybody that always chimes in, like John, you mentioned, if he has a bad game, is he the guy? Caleb is the guy. Caleb is the guy that Ben Johnson came here for. Ben Johnson is determined to make this work. And it's early on, and it's not perfect, but it's working. You can see signs of it working. You see, he says post game yesterday, Caleb says he's excited to be coached by Ben Johnson. He's excited to come to work and see what Ben Johnson has in store for him in terms of the plays or the game plan or whatnot. So these questions got to stop. Caleb's the quarterback. Ben Johnson's the head coach. This is how it's going moving forward. There's not going to be any quarterback controversy moving forward. As long as he stays healthy, Caleb Johnson will be the Bears quarterback, for years to come.
And for me, it's, there are a lot of outcomes that can be out of this, but for me, it's just like, how high is the potential? How much is he going to reach into that potential? Is it going to be good, great, or elite. And so but I don't think it's going to be regression. I don't think we're going to see someone get worse, as we've seen some Bears quarterbacks do, depending on who their coaching staff is. I don't think you're going to see the product get worse on the field. For me, it's just a matter of how high can they take this. And that's why I think what's so exciting to a lot of Bears fans is I don't see this going. I think it's just going to keep going up. Is it going to take off like a rocket, or is it going to be intermediate and just keep going and going and going? Either way, it's a good thing. It's not like, okay, a peak and then crash out, and then it's like this ain't the guy, and he's getting worse, and he's not going through the progressions anymore, and he's seeing ghosts out there, and it's just like I think the only place to go is up. So I think that is what's so exciting. But I want to switch gears real quick and start talking about the defense, because they're doing that bend don't break, and they're taking the ball away. A lot more takeaways against the Commanders. Alyssa, what do you make of this defense so far? They've let up some yards, but they're getting healthy now. They got TJ Edwards back. They got Kyler Gordon back, who looks like he might be a little bit rusty, but otherwise, what do you think of this defense?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there. They've been operating without, three of their best players on defense for most of the season, and they're going to have to wait until later in the year, even if Jalen Johnson potentially returns. But this week, getting back TJ Edwards, he was a huge factor in this game on defense. And, Kyler Gordon still looks a little rusty, but he's going to get there. He's still one of the best nickels in the league. But, when you look overall at this defense, the Bears have one of the worst statistical defenses in the league. They're ranked 15th in pass defense, which is mid. But even after this game, which was their best, and I know we're going to talk about the run defense, but this was their best showing this season, they're still ranked 31st in run defense, allowing over 150 yards per game. And overall, their overall defense are ranked 27th. But I think that where they made up for it is that turnover rate, which we've seen really rack up the last 3 games. Right now they have 24 total takeaways, 11 interceptions, 13 fumbles, which ranks 10th in the league. But over the last 3 weeks alone, they have 11 takeaways, which includes 3 against the Commanders. So I think that whenever you can take the ball away and get it back to your offense and score points off that, you're going to be in a position to win. And these last 2 games against the Raiders and the Commanders, it's been a full team effort where, yes, the offense, the defense, and special teams have struggled here and there, but they've also stepped up when they needed to and done their part so they can pull out these close wins like that. So I think that the defense, there's plenty of room for growth here and improvement, and you're still dealing with some injuries and guys coming back. But I think that their ability to take the football away is, if they can continue to do that, they're going to be a dangerous team.
Yeah, and Danny, I hope that I'm not still in the honeymoon phase of things, because I don't want that to be fogging up my thought process. But I have a lot of confidence in Dennis Allen as a defensive coordinator to get things right and put people in the right position. Does he have all the personnel that he wants? Probably not. But I think that he's going to do the best with what he has. What do you make of this defense as it's getting healthier? As Kyler Gordon gets back, Edwards get back, eventually Jalen Johnson will be back. What do you think the potential is for this defense?
Well, we talked about it, last week coming in as we previewed the Washington game. Washington was leading the league in terms of averaging, I believe, 165 rushing yards per game. The Bears were second worst, I believe, behind the Cowboys only, or ahead of the Cowboys, I should say, only in terms of run defense. And I said, they're going to have to figure out how to do this. And you know what Dennis Allen did? Mosky, I'm just going to call him Bill. All right,
Bill.
Krosky Merritt. All right, Krosky Merritt was coming in red hot, and they limited him to 61 rushing yards. And I said last week that one of the key things was setting that hard edge on defense, right, and funneling everything back inside, maintaining everything in between the tackles there. And I think we have a clip here real quick, and this I want to show you an example of what I was talking about. Look at Dio Odingbo here. Look, does a great job here, setting that edge, doesn't let Jane Daniels get outside. Right, and then funnels them back inside to his teammates, and this is one of the things that they continue to do night in, throughout the night last night, right? And then this is how they helped or maintain or kind of stymie that Washington rushing attack. So that's a great job by DA. DA's defensive line, do a lot of stunts, a lot of twists up front. Last night there was none of that. It was just straight up rushing, maintaining your gap integrity, kind of maintaining yourself and staying in the face, and I guess, again, setting that edge and funneling everything back inside. And whenever they did slant, whether it was left or right, you saw the linebackers, Trent Edmonds and Edwards, crash down aggressively and fill that that vacated spot and crashed with authority. So I think the last 2 games, we've seen probably the best. We've seen Tremaine Edmonds in a Bears uniform. He's been making, he's been coming downhill, making plays. They used him in a blitz a lot last night. DA brought both linebackers. You saw a couple of twist games with the linebackers there playing in the middle there. You saw with Kyler Gordon back. I agree with you, John. He was a little bit rusty yesterday in pass protection. In pass defense, but you saw him being used as a blitzer as we expected. You saw Jaquan Brisker a lot more up near the line of scrimmage, also being used as a blitzer. So I think what Dennis Allen's always said, he's going to alter his attack based on the opponent, right? And so what they wanted to do was create some pressure on Jane Daniels, but more importantly, maintain that that rushing attack, and also keep Jaden Daniels kind of compressed inside and not let him get out there. He had a couple runs, but he didn't really hurt them, right? They didn't get gashed for big runs yesterday that we'd seen them get gashed in previous games. The Genty run with the Raiders and some of the other runs in previous games. So they did a great job of maintaining that. Now, is that game plan going to work against the Saints, against Cincinnati, or against Ravens? We'll see. But I think Dennis Allen's taking what he's got, and he's getting some reinforcements back with Gordon and Edwards, and also Austin Booker's come back. And I'm curious to see how he's going to utilize Austin Booker, and hopefully he provides some of that pass rush that they've been missing. And the other thing was I noticed that he was making all the defensive ends crash down hard on the backside of the play, and that's how Montez Sweat was able to get that ball out from Bill and create a fumble there as well. So it was a different game plan than what we've seen the previous weeks. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to be the same game plan moving forward, but it was something where they had a bye week. They went into the lab and they kind of took a look and said, "Hey, how can we stop this, from getting gashed?" And for at least for 1 week, it worked. Hopefully, we'll see if that continues moving forward.
Yep, like Tremaine Edmonds, 13 tackles. TJ Edwards, 9 tackles, 1.5 sacks for Jervon Dexter. I think Dominic Robinson had the other part of that sack. So a good overall showing by the defense. So I want to move on to something that we don't talk about very often on this show, because I get eerie about talking about officiating, because I try not to complain about it, because most of the time it evens out. There's bad calls on both sides, and it's okay. But that was a topic of discussion amongst a lot of Bears fans, was the officiating in that game. And so you saw a questionable OPI against Colston Loveland. You saw the questionable illegal formation against Theo. And then you had a couple of other ones that were a little ticky-tacky there. Alyssa, I'll start with you. What did you think of the officiating in that game?
Okay, I never want to be that person that's going to blame anything on the officiating, but it was so bad that when you have Colin Coward, starting to point it out, you know that it's bad. And the fact was, when the penalties were happening too, when they were either negating a positive play for the Bears offense, or that was coming against the Bears defense that went in favor of Washington, which we have a few, whether on offense that negated Rome Odunze touchdown with that illegal formation. The only time that we really heard Theo Benedict's name there, or on defense, there was a phantom face mask penalty, a phantom illegal contact. Like there were some questionable penalties, and the timing of them, which was the most frustrating part of it. So I'm actually quite happy that I feel like the Bears should be credited 2 wins, because they beat the Commanders and they beat the refs last night. So just saying.
Fair enough. Danny, like I said, I don't like to spend too much time talking about officiating, but what did you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating, but I'm with you, John. You can't blame officials for a win or a loss. So I just the Theo Benedict one was really the one that really kind of got me, because I'm like, I watched that and I didn't see him being off in terms of being misaligned, and that took away a touchdown. That was a touchdown to Rome. I think that was a huge play in the moment in the football game. So the phantom push off on Colston Loveland, I didn't see that as well. But the one thing with the Bears, they have now these at least of the 5 games, 4 of the 5 they've been heavily penalized. And if you're a heavily penalized team, refs are going to be looking for that. They're going to be looking for the little infractions. Now, I love Ben Johnson's reaction to when he was asked about it today, and he said, what we do is, if there's anything questionable that we see, and we just reach out to the league and say, hey, how do we coach that better? How do we get better in terms of getting our players to stop making these penalties? Instead of let some of the other coaches say, oh, we send tapes in and to complain and all that stuff. So I like the way Ben Johnson's handling it, and hopefully that will kind of trickle down to his team and say, hey, we just, we don't palms up, we don't argue, we just move on, we just get better in terms of coaching it, in terms of bettering in some execution, and just do not allow those referees to call these penalties. But a couple more had me yelling. I'm not gonna lie. But it's something that you have to kind of play through. And luckily, the Bears were able to come out with a victory despite those 8 penalties that they were called for.
Yeah, and I know it's a point of emphasis to make sure that they have the legal formation for the linemen, but I've seen linemen much further back not get flagged, and so that was one of the ones where it's just like
every single snap. The guy from the Chiefs,
yeah,
he's looks like he's 2 yards off the line of scrimmage.
And it took like you said, it took a touchdown off the board, which was incredibly frustrating. But something else that might be frustrating. Go ahead, Danny.
The DJ Moore, he was offsides on another. I think it was there at the 9-yard line. DJ Moore was offsides. It took half the distance back, into how do you line up offsides? And because every time you see a receiver, they point to the official. And now I guess there's an emphasis, but where before the officials will give them a thumbs up saying, yeah, you're good. Now there's been an emphasis made by the league that no, you just stand there, don't gesture. If they're good, they're good. If not, they call it and then throw the flag. And that's something that the players have to get used to. Before the official, they look at a point on the official, give them a thumbs up. Now it's no longer the league said you can't confirm or deny, or not confirm or deny, but you can't let the player know that he's either offsides or misaligned. So that's something that's different this year, and I think that's getting a lot of these receivers to be lined up offsides.
They've literally been doing that their entire lives, probably all the way up through. You point at the ref and see, good, all right, I'm good. And now it's just like, now it's up to you, which I know it still should be able to do it, but like you've had that kind of safety blanket your entire career, and now you're trying to operate without it. And Danny, you mentioned DJ Moore, so let's talk about him. He got banged up couple times. It seemed like he had to, get to the sideline and get some attention. Alyssa, do we know anything about DJ Moore? And if he's out, I mean, is that obviously offers another opportunity for Luther Burden to step in?
Yeah, like you mentioned I'm pretty sure everyone knows, but for any Bears fans that don't know, after last night's win, it was reported that DJ Moore was staying overnight at a DC area hospital as a precaution. And, head coach Ben Johnson talked to reporters today, and he said that it was, quote, good news, and that Moore has a groin injury that he's dealing with. So he's back in Chicago. He's day-to-day. So it's not necessarily out of the question that he could suit up against the Saints on Sunday, but I would bet against that. Again, it's a short week. You don't want to rush anyone back, and Ben Johnson hasn't shown signs of trying to rush players back. So, like you said, John, I think that this is going to be an opportunity for Luther Burden, which we still haven't seen enough of him. I think looking back, I'd want to see more of him instead of OZ. Just sorry, but because when Luther's on the field, he has made the most of his opportunities. Including yesterday and last night's game. So, I'm really looking forward to seeing a lot more of him on Sunday if DJ can't go. So, but hopefully it's good news that DJ is doing well, because that was scary last night reading that on Twitter. It's like 1 a.m. and I'm in bed laying down. I'm like, oh my, what happened? Why is he in the hospital? So it's good. That was a scare for a while, but he's doing good. And if he can't go, then we get to see some of that of Luther Burden, the second round rookie, hopefully light it up against the Saints.
And Danny, if DJ Moore can't go, because they do use Moore very uniquely. You see him in the backfield a lot. They throw a lot of the screens to him. I don't expect Luther Burden to be in the backfield, but can he take some of those bubble screens or tunnel screens that they're throwing to the outside? Yeah,
that's Burden's strength. Get him in the open field, get the ball in his hands, and let him do his thing. And I think that's where, I agree with. I want to see more of Luther Burden as well. And he's coming slowly but surely. But you can see the kid is explosive. Every time the ball is in his hands, this kid has a chance to take it to the house. So he's very exciting. You just want to get him more and more opportunities with the ball in his hands. And I think if DJ can't go, that is something that you should see Luther get a more playing time there. But hopefully, I also want to see the tight ends getting more involved. And this is what I'm talking about in terms of this offense is going to continue to get better, because once they kind of focus on the tight ends and where you see some of Colson Love and what he could do, and also obviously Cole Kmet as well. I think you incorporate those guys now with DJ and with Luther and Rome and Olamide. I think you're continuing to see this offense continue to flourish and grow and continue a rushing attack that doesn't have to be a league leading rushing attack, but it's got to be respectable. Where again, the play action freezes that second level defender. And I think this offense has potential to get even better moving forward. So, but yeah, it's unfortunate because it was kind of weird because during the game they said he had a hip injury, and then this morning you wake up and you hear that he was in hospital because of a groin injury and all that stuff. But my biggest concern is why is Alyssa on Twitter at 1 a.m. in the morning?
Because of a prime time game.
Are you really
I'm on
surprised?
The East Coast.
Are you really surprised? Because she's churning out 40 articles a day, including stuff at 1 and 2 in the morning. So that's the dedication you get from Alyssa Barbieri. And so we were talking about what the roles might be going in against the Saints. So let's talk about the Saints. I mean, that is the Bears' next game, and no games are easy, so you can't look past anything. The Saints are obviously struggling, but that doesn't mean you can't have a trap game here and there. So they got to take this game just as seriously. There are some weapons for New Orleans on both sides of the football. Danny, you talked about their pass rush a little bit, but they are 1-5, but are they really that bad?
They have talent, right? So obviously, Kellen Moore, the first-time head coach, is they're playing hard for Kellen Moore, and defensively, they got some veterans on there, guys that Dennis Allen is very familiar with, right? Defensive ends, Cameron Jordan, and Carl Granderson, who leads them with 4.5 sacks. Jordan has 2 sacks, so they can get after the quarterback. They have 13 sacks as a team. They got some guys up front that can cause some havoc offensively. Spencer Rattler has been having a solid season. He's got over 1,200 yards passing, 6 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions, completing almost 69% of his passes. So he's got the ability, can also use his legs to be a little bit of a dual threat, not a Jaden Daniels type of dual threat, but could be elusive in the pocket there. And Alvin Kamara, the veteran, that hasn't had a great year, only 1 touchdown, averaging about 3.8 yards a carry. But on the outside, you have Chris Olave, the former Ohio State receiver, averaging 8.8 yards a catch, 1 touchdown. But their deep threat, their big play guy is Rashid Shaheed on the outside, who's averaging 12.2 yards a catch with 2 touchdowns. So they got some weapons, so they can attack you. And the Bears aren't a team now where they can just take anybody for granted. So I hope the Bears and Ben Johnson going to stress this week that this is another game where don't come in here. I know the Bears are 5.5-point favorites in Vegas, but it's not one of these things where the Bears can come in and just, all right, cakewalk and get a victory. They're going to have to take this team seriously. They're going to have to come out on Soldier Field and really, put a great effort to be able to stop them offensively and also, score points on offense. Now, talk about their secondary. They are, I believe, the second, or is it? I looked at the stat up here earlier. They're giving up 14 passing touchdowns this season, second only to Dallas. Dallas has given up 15. They've given up 15 plays of 20 or more passing yards, 5 plays of 40 plus pass yards. So you can throw on them, right? You can get some chunk plays here throwing the football. So hopefully, again, you'll be a nice balanced offense, run and pass. But yeah, you can definitely attack this team in the secondary and get after them and put up some points. So, but again, the Bears aren't at the point where they can just take anybody for granted. It's every week, any game Sunday. I hope to come in and take the Saints team easily, or take them seriously, I should say, and not think it's an easy win and come out with a victory and continue this winning streak.
Yeah, because nothing would be a bigger punch in the gut than having a huge win over the Commanders and then having a letdown game against the Saints. We're like, well, we were going to win that. We were expecting to win that game, and so we wanted to compound this good feeling, and that would be 4 in a row, and that would be very, very disheartening. And I'm going to talk about the Bears defense here in a second, but Alyssa, Jeremy Trotter, and I probably screwed that name up, of Saints Wires writes that New Orleans secondary might be the worst in the NFL, and so would this be the time for Caleb Williams to have a big game? Danny already broke down the secondary and some of their deficiencies there. So what are your expectations of Caleb going into this game against New Orleans?
I mean, I think there's the potential to be a repeat of the Cowboys game where, Caleb goes off. He had last time against the Cowboys, he fell just short of 300 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and set a career high with the passer rating, 142.6. And, Jeremy was talking about how I think the Bears should well, he wasn't saying this, but Quincy Riley and Jonas Sanker are two of the guys that the Bears should be targeting here. They allowed some big plays in last week's game. So I think, the front seven has improved, but that secondary has regressed very quickly. And they do give up large chunk plays on a weekly basis. So I think that this could be another big day for Caleb and Rome. And, Rome could get maybe another couple scores and keep his touchdown total up because he was robbed last week.
Big ups to Mr. Shorty here, and I want to put that quote on there now. It says, Danny, if you noticed, they finally started dropping Caleb back deeper in the pocket. That could help his 6'1" height to see over the line because his arm can make up for the difference. Do you think that they started dropping him back in the pocket a little bit more, or and are they trusting the line to protect him as he drops back in the pocket a little bit deeper?
Yeah, I mean, we continue to see 3, 5, 7-step drops. I didn't break it down in terms of whether it was more 5-step, 7-step drops or 3-step drops, but it definitely is an emphasis on getting the ball out of his hands quicker, right? And being more calm in the pocket. So I think that's where we're seeing him get better here week in and week out. So and one thing we touched on it last week, in terms of when that back foot hits now for Caleb, whether it's a 3, 5, or 7-step drop, that ball's out, it's coming out. And last time we saw a couple times he kind of double pumped it because he was kind of unsure where to go with, but he still was able to get rid of that football and complete the ball. There was one pass where Oz dropped it, but he still is able to kind of reset himself when he's not ready to go and get rid of that football, as opposed to before, where if he stopped, and he was ready to throw it and no one's open, guess what? Caleb's retreating from the back, running around, trying to create things, make things happen, and that's where the generally bad things happen for the Bears offense. So again, 3, 5, 7-step drop, balls out of his hands, and that's what you want to see. Predominantly now, you're seeing Caleb making more and more plays from the pocket.
Yep, and so I mean, there is a potential there with the schematics and the personnel for the Saints. This could, listen, I never count my chickens before they're hatched with the Chicago Bears. So yes, it is on the table for him to have a big game. So, but I'm hoping, I'm not going to assume it, but I'm hoping for it. And the things are in order for that to happen. So let's switch to the defense real quick. Looking at the Saints offense and what they have to offer, do you think that the Bears defense, and Alyssa, I'll ask you this first, have a good chance to improve their run defense? They do have to go up against Calvin Kamara, and I think Kendre Miller is getting worked into the rotation there. What are your thought process here for potentially being able to stop the run?
Really taking a look at like the Saints and what they've been able to do with their rushing attack. They're middle of the pack this season so far. And last week against the Patriots, they totaled 73 yards, and that included Kamara notching 31 yards on 10 carries. And then you have the Bears, who last week they held the league's best rushing attack to 124 yards, which was well below their 160 plus average. So I think that there's definitely an opportunity for them to continue to improve on that. I think if you're able to do what you did against Washington, that I think the Saints, especially the fact that this game is at home, I think is going to help a lot for Chicago and for this defense, really get them going. So I think that there is definitely a chance that they could replicate this again, kind of with the Bears offense and getting that run game going. Now that you've had that confidence, you can do it. You just stop the best rushing attack in the NFL. I think that they could do something similar for sure against the Saints.
And Danny, Dennis Allen revenge game. Plenty of storylines in here. The Spencer Rattler, Caleb Williams connection there, and then the DA going back is coaching against his former team. What do you expect out of the defense?
Yeah, so this is the game where DA has I would think will have an advantage in terms of he knows that personnel. Now it's a whole new staff and they might be being utilized in a different way, but I think Dennis Allen should have a good idea in terms of how he wants to attack this offensive unit, whether it's the line or the quarterback or whatnot. So yeah, I think obviously if everything starts with and ends with that the run game, right? Can you stop the run and can you run the football? So I think that's going to be the emphasis again is making sure you keep Kamara and Kendre Miller in check, and also, like I said, Spencer Rattler, doesn't get out and get crazy with his legs. And I think you just kind of try and lock these guys down. Like, one thing curious in terms of what he did again this past week was, there was a lot more zone and a lot less, press man. So, is he going to flip around again each week to week? He says, he's going to alter his game plan to see how he wants to do this. So I think he did a nice job in terms of, kind of decoying and dropping Brisker. It kind of played Jaden Daniels a nice way there to kind of lull him into that interception. We're going to see more of that with Brisker being a little more freedom back there, maybe bring up his interception numbers. Obviously, we know Kevin Byers is a ball hawk. So, this defense right now has been giving up yards, giving up chunk yards. But you know what? When it comes time to it, they either get a stop to get the ball back to their offense, or they get a turnover. And they've been creating turnovers like crazy. If that trend continues, I think the Bears take advantage of that weak secondary for the Saints, like Alyssa mentioned. I think the Bears can put up some points and hopefully come out with the victory. So it definitely is going to be a game where the Bears have to go in focused on stopping the run and then continue to create turnovers.
Guys, and we'll finish on this, but I can always tell when Aldo has access to the rundown to this show, and it's a shared doc, so I can always see when Aldo puts his little spin on it, because I have to read this at the end. I was trying to put it off and maybe we'd run out of time, but all it says is on the bullet point, too early for playoffs ? And so, okay, so let's do it. And listen, we're what, 5 games in, and so yeah, and so. Right now they're in the hunt. Great. But is it too early, Alyssa, to start talking about the P word, playoffs? Now, granted, there have been years that we've done this show, and this is the 9th year of this show. So there have been times when we've been, at barely into October, and we're asking Danny for mock drafts. So I guess this is a welcome change of pace, talking about the P word. But is it too early to talk about that?
Aldo, do we have that graphic of Doug?
Yes,
the one.
Yeah.
Or the Jim Mora cut playoffs.
Playoffs.
This is moronic.
There we go. So the answer is yes, it's too early to start talking playoffs. But I did do my homework because Aldo posed the question. I'm like, okay, let's see. So right now the Bears are right there in the race for the NFC North at 3-2. And they are 2 games out of first in this division, and they are, if the Cowboys had just taken care of business against the Packers, they'd be 1 game out. So, and now they're going into a favorable portion of their schedule. You have the Saints, the Ravens, who are banged up, and we'll see if Lamar Jackson's going to be 100% healthy at that point after their bye week. The Bengals, the Giants. I feel like you should win at least 3 of those, maybe 4 if you can take advantage of a banged up Baltimore team, best case scenario. And they're currently, in case you were wondering, after 5 games, they are currently 3 spots out of a playoff spot. So it is way too early, but I did do my homework.
You're getting paid to play this game and play it right.
Way too much time that Alyssa spent on this. Way too much time.
So, Aldo, put that schedule back up, because I think it's interesting, and I'm trying to make something that's actually worth talking about in this subject here. But when we looked at this schedule earlier in the year, you're going into, okay, well, the Commanders, that's tough. Maybe you get an easy game against the Saints, and then, oh man, the Ravens with Lamar Jackson. Well, their defense can't stop anybody. They're ranked last in the league. Oh man, the Bengals, they don't have Joe Burrow, and maybe the Giants are going to be a little tougher than we thought with Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo. But who knows what's going to be going on with Minnesota after that? And I picked them to beat the Steelers after that. I'm not saying they're going to rattle off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight games here, but that schedule is not as daunting as we originally thought back in August and early September. So as you look over this, and to Alyssa's point, yes, they are just a few games out. And if they would have just not played that bad quarter against the Vikings, they only have 1 loss going into this game. But as you look over that schedule, is it more in their favor than you originally thought?
Guys, I'm either wet blanket here. I'm going to be the guy that's going to be cliche right here. 1 game at a time. Any given Sunday, anybody can win, anybody can lose, and especially with this Bears team, we don't know where we're going to get consistency in terms of week in and week out. Now, if they start rattling off some of these wins, and this rushing attack that we saw yesterday versus the Commanders becomes the norm, as opposed to just one of these like, wow, look at these, the Bears running the game, are actually running the ball. Then we're going to start. And if this, the guys come back healthy on defense, talk about Austin Booker come back maybe in a week or 2, and they start putting consistent pressure on the quarterback, and we're continue to create turnovers and all that stuff. That's time to get excited, right? The schedule doesn't look as daunting as it did prior to the season, but again, the business Bears team isn't to the point where we can say, all right, week in and week out, this should be a win, this should be a win, there should be a loss. It's week in and week out, and let's see what they do with the Saints. And if they can get a win there, great. That's 4 in a row. Now let's move on to the Ravens, who, by the way, should be getting Lamar Jackson back, and also the middle linebacker and Roquan Smith back as well by the time that the Bears see them. So that could change things drastically as well in terms of that outcome of that game. So 1 week at a time, let's pump the brakes on the playoff talk. Let's enjoy this team actually having a head coach and actually having a coaching staff that gets develops players and it puts them in positions to succeed. The team's getting better. I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying seeing these guys go out week in and week out, surprise us with new game plan or with new concepts on offense and also defense as well, and continue to kind of bring us some enjoyment on Sundays, because what we've been through the last 4 or 5 years has been miserable. And I kept thinking, going back to beginning of the show where we talked about Ben Johnson, I was kind of nervous in terms of he was playing for the field goal. Like, I thought if that was Eberflus, as soon as the Bears crossed midfield, he'd have his quarterback take a knee and kick like a 57-yard field goal or something like that. There's something insane in those conditions. But we have a coach now and a coaching staff that's making these players get better. They're challenging these players. They're bringing the best out of these players week in and week out. I'm just going to enjoy that. I'm just going to take a week at a time. If they make the playoffs, great. That's cherry on top of everything for me. But I just want this team to continue to get better, and I want to see Caleb and the rest of the team get better and be coached up and be put in positions to succeed week in and week out.
Quick question from the chat. I think we got somebody agrees with you. And we'll probably talk about this later on down the road. But if the win streak continues, do you buy or do you stay put at the trade deadline? Danny, we talked a little bit about this last week. For the most part, you're staying put, right?
Yeah, it depends, right? November 4th is trade deadline. There's a lot of veterans that are going to be available. Again, where are you come trade deadline? Are you a game out of the playoffs? Have you taken a position like even Ben Johnson said today? If this continues this trend of getting better offensively, putting things together, and the rushing attack and the passing attack, all that stuff, they could potentially see themselves as competing for a playoff spot. At that point, you got to kind of weigh, what are you giving up and what are you getting back? Are you getting a veteran like, say, I don't know, a Cameron Jordan, a defensive end that for example, that Dennis Allen's very familiar with. You give him a 5th round pick for someone like that can come in and help you, maybe boost that pass rush. Sure. For me, I tweeted something out this past week in terms of all this talk about getting running backs. Slow your roll on the running backs, guys. What we need is to fix the offense and defensive lines. This past week was very encouraging from both the offense and defensive lines, and that if it continues to get better. If I want to see more reinforcements, if we're going to make a trade, let's get reinforcements there. Let's get an offensive lineman. Let's get a defensive tackle. Let's go ask the Titans about Jeffrey Simmons. Let's ask the Jets about Quinn Williams if these guys are available. Those are the kind of guys that I want to go get, guys that can be building blocks moving forward, not just for this season, but also for 2 or 3 years coming down the line. So if that's the kind of trade you're looking at, sure. But if you're going to get a rental, a 1-year guy like. I don't like the kid from Cincinnati, the edge rusher. I'm drawing a blank. Hendrickson. Has a bad back. He's going to be a free agent after the year. Do you want to give up a 2nd round pick for 8 or 9 games of Hendrickson? I don't want to do that. But if you're going to get a guy like Jeffrey Simmons, or if you're going to get a guy like Quinn Williams, young guys that are in the prime of their career on long-term contracts, you give a 2nd round pick for those guys. Now we're talking, because you need that. That's a building block. You can help kind of fortify this defensive line.
Alyssa, this is a year where there are no dominant teams really in any conference. Everyone has shown weaknesses. There is not one standalone. We've seen the weaknesses with Philadelphia. We've seen, Tampa's playing very well with Baker Mayfield, but they dropped a game to Philadelphia, and there is just no real juggernaut there. So that, it is for the taking. Maybe the playoffs are for the taking, maybe whatever. So would you be a buyer at the trade deadline, given the watered down competition? Because even within the NFC North, it's probably one of the best, if not the best division in football, but all of those teams have shown weaknesses throughout the year so far and don't look like they're a runaway with the division. So what would you do at the trade deadline if the Bears are just over 500 flirting with that record?
Yeah, like you said, I think it depends where they're going to be at. But I think Danny made a really good point about if you are going to be a buyer, who are you looking to add? And you want to, you target the trenches, because look at DeAndre Swift. You got the run game going finally. You bring in Theo Benedict, a nice combination for that offensive line, and DeAndre Swift really turns it on. So I don't think you're really going to be in the market for a running back at this point, but I wouldn't be, opposed to bringing in I don't want a 1-year rental like Danny was saying, because we've seen the Bears do that before, and they were more than a player away at this point as well. So, I mean, if the price is right, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I would like it to be, like Danny said, a building block. And then, like, one of my questions was, because I had the Chargers Wire editor reach out to me, and he was like, could you see the Bears trading Braxton Jones, right? And I'm thinking, because, if Theo's going to be the answer there, but you do need to have depth at that position, but he is going to be a free agent next year. Do you try to get a 7th round pick or get something for Braxton Jones? So that these are the decisions that Ryan Poles is going to have to make. We'll see. Would the Chargers even be willing to deal anything for Braxton Jones? So, it's going to be interesting, but I wouldn't be opposed to them making a move if it's going to be a long-term somewhat investment. So, and who knows, maybe they could get something for. And Danny, I think you brought up maybe there's a team desperate enough to trade for Jake Moody. Who knows?
Yeah, there we go.
They're always wanted, man. You see all these kickers that are coming out of nowhere. If Jake Moody is impressed somebody, maybe get a 7th round pick for him. Who knows? It's nothing. You sign him for nothing. You might as well get something for him if you can.
Wheeling and dealing for those 6th and 7th round picks. I love it. Getting nitty gritty with it, Danny. All right. Before we go around the horn, I just want to say thank you to both Lutz and Shorty for their donations, or their paid comments. We appreciate that. We appreciate all the comments, but let's go around the horn real quick. Danny, I'm sure you're watching a lot of college ball this weekend. The top of your list has got to be like what, Penn State, Iowa, or who do you watch?
Penn State, obviously, they made the big headlines this past week. Firing James Franklin after that debacle in terms of the past two weeks. But college football is hot and heavy right now, and it's starting to get a little bit more interesting here in terms of some of these some of the top teams are starting to kind of separate themselves here from the rest of the pack. But definitely looking at some of these prospects that could potentially come out for the draft next year. And like I said a couple weeks ago, I'm targeting the offensive line, and I'm targeting some secondary players here. And so look for that on Shimon Draft Scout, where we'll be posting my top 10 in terms of offensive line. Already my defensive ends, I see one guy that's blowing up right now. It's Ruben Bain Jr. He's a guy that I posted up earlier in terms of in the preseason. Look out for this kid, and he's a guy that's exploding on the scene there at Miami. So we'll try to identify some players that fit into the Bears' plans, and moving forward on the offensive line, and also then secondary players too. So look for that to come up here at Shimon Draft Scout.
Excellent. A lot of good games. And weird college football season. Upsets all over the place. I don't know if there's a head and shoulders runaway juggernaut in college football, just like there is in the NFL. So it should make for a very interesting playoff, should make for a very interesting
this year Indiana became a football school.
Yeah, and then they're talking about where could Cignetti go to Penn State? Could Matt Rule be going to Penn State? And that the coaching carousel, in addition to the competition at the end of the year, is also going to be
halfway through the season. They're already talking about coaches moving to different programs. It's insane. Right.
Yeah,
college football has become insane.
Welcome to the world of transfer portals and NIL, and people are just moving around, and it's you know what, it keeps it interesting. I'll say that much. But Alyssa, what are you working on? I think you have 52 articles out so far this week. What are we working on for the rest of the week?
At 1 a.m. on Twitter. What are you working on?
Yeah, 1 a.m. Oh, we got everything. Still recapping this game on the short week. And in case you've been following the whole Troy Aikman, Caleb Williams stuff, we got you covered from all angles. We got reactions. We got Ben's reaction. We got Caleb's reaction. Like, it's all there. And then we're going to be getting you ready for Sunday's game against the Saints before, during, and after. So make sure you stay tuned to Bears Wire and check out that Aikman stuff. Caleb, I like that. He called him out.
I totally was oblivious to this, guys. I told you guys pre-show, like I saw everything on Twitter blowing up. I'm like, what happened? I watched the game. I heard the audio. Nothing caught my attention in terms of Aikman, dissing Caleb.
Danny, did you watch it with the sound on?
Yeah. I'm like, no, I was focusing on the offensive and defensive line. So I was like, I wasn't really like toned in on Aikman and Buck, but it was just like nothing really caught my eye in terms of like. There was a couple times where I think that Rome play where Rome threw up his hand and Caleb took the 3-yard first down run instead. I remember he saying that there's Rome right there. He missed it, But I just didn't think it was that egregious. I guess I must have missed the whole thing.
And once again, much like officiating, I very rarely weigh in on commentating because it has zero impact on the game. But I just thought, I'm like, man, it seems like he just doesn't really like him very much. I mean, I could be wrong, but it just kind of seemed that way. But
Caleb completed a pass. He's like, oh, that was a little high.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he's off tonight, and you had like a 90% completion percentage or whatever it was. Right. But so Alyssa's got you covered for the Troy Aikman drama. You go over there on Bears Wire and they got everything about the Troy Aikman drama. So, but that being said, we're gonna get out of here. Troy Gate. Yeah, there you go. There's your headline right there. No cost. Danny won't charge you for that. But that'll do it for this edition of Buffone 55. We appreciate each and every one of you tuning in, whether it's the live version, the podcast version, the video version, the audio version, whether it's your first time or your 55th time. We appreciate each and every one of you and tuning in every week to hear us just blabber on about our favorite thing in the world, the Chicago Bears. But for Alyssa Barbieri and Danny Shimon, Aldo Gandia working the controls in the background, I'm John Buffone. Enjoy the game, everybody. Winning streak continues. We'll see, and we'll see you next week.